Hello, and thanks for joining us. I'm Kevin Nealon. Our top story tonight, it appears congratulations are in order. We are monitoring things closely as details continue to come in, but it seems, yes, I have confirmation. We're talking about you, Joseph. Congratulations. You really outdid yourself this time, which probably wasn't that hard. Our team has discovered footage from one of the many celebrations taking place in your honor. Stay away from drugs, kids. Now for some deeper analysis, let's go live via satellite to our special guest commentator, Other Kevin. Other Kevin, what are your thoughts on all this? Speechless, Kevin. Wow. Just wow. Insightful as always. Thank you. Well, I'm now being told that we are out of time and that I should pull this lever. I'm Kevin Nealon. Thanks for watching. Take care, Jimmy. Thanks, Bob.
Hi, this is Penn. Penn Jillette, Penn and Teller. Big guy does magic, smaller guy next to me. He does magic too. He doesn't talk that much. I want to talk about Joseph Jaffe is not famous. And Joseph Jaffe is not famous. Joseph Jaffe is wicked not famous. Joseph Jaffe is superlatively not famous, and for good and sufficient reason. I mean, maybe his guests are famous. Maybe his guests are famous. He gets some famous people on his guests, but Joseph Jaffe himself is not famous. That's the important part. You can have famous guests and still not be famous. And if you want an example of that, well, Joseph Jaffe would be a really good example. Teller would do a better job at a talk show, and Teller doesn't talk, which you'd think would be one of the major qualifications of being on a talk show and not being famous. What's that, Teller? Oh, yeah, Teller says, Joseph Jaffe, not famous. Love you. Peace.
But he's especially... Well, Peter, you might be the first person on this planet that has ever shut me up for this long. Good old Heraclitus, I tell you, that wild and crazy guy.
If I came to you and I gave you $10,000 for 20% of the company.
Deal.
Yeah.
So, is that a verbal?
Younger than us, sorry to say, Joseph.
What, younger than 20?
Joe, we're just trying to help you because clearly you've lost control of the conversation.
I never, you know what? With all due respect, I never had control of the situation. Doesn't mean I'm overgone. What doesn't kill me makes you stronger.
Look at you. You are insane.
How did I do that?
You're
How
insane.
did I do that?
You're insane.
Yes. I might be insane, but is there any other way to live your life than with a little bit of insanity? Do we want to be normal? Do we want to be vanilla? One of the greatest lines uttered in this little experiment of mine called Joseph Jaffe is not famous was Jeremy Tucker, who was then the CMO, the Chief Marketing Officer of Planet Fitness. And he said the thing about vanilla is that it is the most popular flavor, but no one will drive across town for it. Love that line, right? So do you want to be the biggest or do you want to be the best? Do you want quant or do you want qual? I don't know. I'm a little bit more of a quality guy myself, and you got to be just a little bit different in order to stand out from the crowd. Well, welcome everyone. I see a comment, Mr. Bob Farnham, who says, are you using the correct mic? Am I using the correct mic? I don't know, am I? What do you say, Michael Brenner? Am I using the correct mic? Let's check. Roadcaster. Yes, I guess I am. So maybe I'm sounding vanilla. I don't know. Maybe I am. Who knows? Maybe I'll have some vanilla ice cream tonight. But I'll tell you what I'm going to do right now is tell you about Friday. On Friday, Mr. Brian Fanzo comes on the show as we celebrate the end of season 1 of NFT 365. This crazy man bought an NFT every single day for an entire flipping year, and he created a podcast every single day for an entire flipping year. And I'm using Flip a lot, but I should be using Flip a lot because, again, you've got to be just a little bit different in order to stand out. I actually did a pre-record earlier this week with John Lee Dumas, and I got to tell you that JLD has actually been doing as well a podcast every single day for, I don't know, about 17 bazillion years as well. He does it slightly differently. He records 7 in a row on one day, and then he batches them over every single day. Again, if you want to be different in this world, guess what? You need to be different in this world. Bob says Brian is crazy in a good way. Well, I mean, there's definitely a common thread. I'll tell you, Michael Brenner, who is my guest today, is not crazy. He's crazy good. He's crazy awesome. But he's not, he's also crazy in a good way. Well, let's find out when we bring him on the show if in fact he is crazy in any way, good, bad, or ugly. And he will be on the show in about 6 or 7 minutes. But before we bring him on, just want to mention that, maybe one of the best things that I've ever done in my life has been starting this collective cafe. Bob, who's watching, it's like our Zoom after show that we used to do back in 2020. But this takes place audio only in Discord, in discord.gg/Alpha Collective. And it's an opportunity, audio first, audio only, to connect 8 to 9, Monday through Friday, 8 to 9. And we do crazy things. Actually, we don't do crazy things at all, but we manifest. We have No Agenda Friday. We're doing live reads at the moment. In fact, tomorrow on Thursday, we will be doing a live read of my very first book, Life After the 30-Second Spot. It is crazy to go back 18 years ago and be able to see what came true, everything, what didn't come true, nothing, and see what maybe still is yet to come true. I just saw a tweet, and I have to go and do a little bit of research and validate it. But someone actually said if you were to spend $1,000 shorting the Super Bowl advertisers from 2022, you would have made $1 billion. Now, I don't think those numbers are exactly right, and I'm investigating a little bit. But when you actually look at the companies on that list, it's crazy. I mean, look, there's crypto.com, and I think FTX, and Coinbase, and there are and a bunch of other companies. Look, things are tough right now, and you cannot separate that from the economic situation and the environment. But at the same time, these are all companies that spend $6-7 million on a 30-second spot in front of 110 million drunken eyeballs in the Super Bowl. And so here we are, 18 years later, looking at the beleaguered 30-second spot. But enough of that. As I suddenly look on my left shoulder and see my little pets.com sock puppet just sitting right here. Who could ever forget that darling hallmark of the .com boom and bust? But today's seated soliloquy, in homage, in honor, in tribute, in hat tip, to my guest Michael Brenner, is called Mean People Suck. Now, I have to tell you that I don't normally choose a soliloquy that is, literally verbatim the show title and even a book from my guest, but I had to connect with this. How could I not? Because number one, I wrote a book called Built to Suck. So off the bat, Michael and I can discuss whether, in fact, having the word suck in a title hurt or helped book sales. It's funny how fickle people can be. We use words like suck and other words that rhyme with suck in our daily life. But for some reason, whenever we say words like, I don't know, damn or suck, People have a little bit of a allergic reaction, a skin rash to them. But let's get to the subject at hand. Mean people suck. Well, I'm going to ask Michael specifically questions about that. But the two call outs for me, and we mentioned this in the Instagram live that we just did, was this idea of mean people finishing first, right? There are so many mean people. And first of all, meanness is a choice. So is being good. Everything is a choice in this world. You can choose to be kind, and you can choose to be cruel. You can choose to be generous. You can choose to have empathy for someone else, and you can choose to be selfish and egotistical and arrogant. It is a choice. It is an absolute choice. Now, I will tell you that when we see people acting in a not nice way, it's typically because something is going on in their lives. I think we should always give people the benefit of the doubt to recognize that when they're having a bad day, they might be a little impatient, they might be a little mean, they might be a little cruel even, because something's going on in their life. But is that an excuse? Is it acceptable? Is it an excuse? I don't know. I think if meanness is a choice and kindness is a choice, then even when we're having a bad day, we have the choice whether we want to rise above it or not. This whole title is, this whole idea, it really, really hits home, because over the last 2.5 years, we've seen people act in incredibly kind, empathetic ways, and we've seen people just batten down the hatches and retreat and demonstrate that meanness. But like, as I said to you, it's a choice. Make the choice. When you come to a fork in the road, take it. And that's what we're going to do right now with my guest, Michael Brenner. Let's talk to the man who wrote the book on the subject. Michael Brenner is the former VP of digital marketing at SAP. He's been a CMO of multiple high-growth startups, is a top content marketing influencer, and now runs a fast-growing content marketing agency, the Marketing Insider Group. He's also the author of The Content Formula and Mean People Suck. When he's not running after his 4 kids, Michael enjoys sharing his experiences and client stories to inspire leaders like you to create growth and impact. Let's welcome him on the show. Michael Brenner, you are not mean.
I don't think I'm mean, but I might be crazy. You know, I don't know.
Yeah, I was like, how can I've just met you. How can I determine you're not crazy? So let's start off there. Tell me about how crazy you are.
You know, I don't know if I could tell you how crazy you are. I can only tell you that other people say that I'm crazy. So, you know, maybe they're the ones that are crazy. That's what I'm thinking.
I happen to know for a fact that you are crazy. And I have the images and I have the private investigation photos to prove it. First of all, guest number 413 and my best guest yet, for sure. I can even say that before the show is unfolded. So don't let me down, by the way. All right. So I was saying to you that I had heard through good authority and resources that, in fact, you were a little bit crazy. And it all comes out in fun facts about Michael Brenner. For example, would you say it is crazy for someone to wrestle a crocodile and a killer jellyfish at the same time and win? Before you answer that, we have a photo of the very moment that he wrestled this killer crocodile and killer jellyfish. What the hell was going on? What were you thinking? Tell us the story.
Well, his name is Frank, by the way, in case you're wondering.
Wait, the jellyfish or the crocodile?
The crocodile, yeah.
Okay.
The jellyfish, I don't think he had a name. I don't think they had brains, so I'm not really sure we refer to him. But
if they did, their names would be Frank. No, I don't know.
Maybe. I don't know. Probably something a little more, fishy. I don't know. But yeah, it was a crazy day. I landed in Australia, was walking down the beach, and there was, huge signs on the beach that said, don't go in the water because there's like many different things that'll kill you. And so, of course, I went in the water, and the first thing we saw was that was Frank, and we met him, and so we had a bit of a tussle, and it was fun. He didn't eat that day, which was good for me. And then it's interesting. Australia is funny because when you're on the beach, you really, there's the little box jellyfish that can kill you, but then you go like 400 meters off the coastline, and they tell you to jump in and look at the reef, and there's tons of jellyfish. They're just not the killer ones. So it was one of the more interesting days. But you asked for a story, and that's the best one I had.
I would say this episode is not a perfect example or case study for Visit Australia Tourism Board, but those Aussies are crazy. And speaking of crazy, I don't know why the common thread is this, but a previous guest on the show, Kerry O'Shea Gorgone, says Michael Brenner is the best kind of crazy, can confirm. So it's done now. I don't even have to continue to talk about some of the craziness in your life. For example, I mean, this is just lunacy. You said you used to be skinny and good looking, and even though we have an example of a photo of you being skinny and good looking, you still look skinny and you still look good looking to me.
I mean, I also used to be younger, believe it or not. 20 years ago, I was
that I can confirm.
It's crazy. I mean, it just. Yeah, I got second in that competition, which was upsetting. But you should have seen the first place guy. I mean, he was huge and quite good looking. He looked like Tom Cruise
and he apparently had a stomach. I mean,
yeah, with a little more bulk.
Yeah. So, where are the organs, by the way, in a bodybuilder? where are they hiding?
They're distributed. They're evenly distributed into muscle mass.
I'm telling you, it's crazy. Well, on the basis of this, we go from ridiculous to sublime here. And the other fun fact that we found out about you, and this is kind of interesting, is that your children's birthdays line up to the 4 major social platform launches. So how did that happen?
So it's another vacation.
Don't answer that. 9 months before. Don't answer that part.
It was another vacation story. We were on a boat in the Florida Keys, and we were sort of anchored and just enjoying the day, and I looked at my phone just for a minute, and I got an email from LinkedIn that said it's our 15th, it's the anniversary of our launch 15 years ago. And it was also my daughter's birthday. And so it was the first time I realized that my daughter and LinkedIn shared a birthday. And, same year. So she was born on the day that LinkedIn went formally live. So I thought that was pretty cool. And then, of course, as a marketer, I looked at my other kids' birthdays, and not exactly the same day. So I have to be honest there. But my daughter, my second daughter, shares a birth week, really, with the launch of Facebook outside of sort of a couple of private universities. My son shares a birth month with the launch of the iPhone in the United States. And child number 4, I love to say, was God's plan, not our plan, or some people like to describe that as an oops baby. And, just like we can't imagine life without him, he shares a birth week with the launch of TikTok. And so now we're all, sort of happily walking around with, fun video reels that we can look at. And I look at my kids, and we can see the age of these social media platforms on these kids, which is pretty fun for us.
So now I can't wait for, child number 5 to coincide with Truth Social meets Parler meets Elon Musk meets Kanye's. No, let's not go there. Let's not go there at all. Let's just cap it at 4.
Yes, I can without sharing too much information, I can safely say that the barn door has been shut, and so there will be no number 5.
Yeah, we understand, and enough said. But now that we've gotten a chance to get to know you just a little bit better, we're going to get into, I mean, there's so much to talk about. And certainly from, I mean, we could probably spend all this time talking about content and content strategy and a content formula. But I really want to get into this book. I mean, Mean People Suck: How Empathy Leads to Bigger Profits and a Better Life. So let's discuss suckage as well. I say in Built to Suck, suckage is inevitable as a company. Is suckage inevitable in humanity?
Mhm. Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think the fact, I mean, I'm familiar with your book. I haven't read it, I have to be honest, but I was familiar with it,
Nor have I. So
and your reputation. And it's really interesting how there's a lot of commonality, I think, in the storylines between the two. And I think the reason is because there is inevitable suck in this world. And I think most marketing sucks. Unfortunately for those of us in marketing, but yeah, I think it's just human nature that there's going to be, I like to call it the paradox of sort of arrogance. And so the paradox of arrogance is, I think that, like, cave people, they they saw the guy that had the big club that was, or the lady that was beating people more than others, and said, he's going to be our leader. And then they realized, wait, he actually sucks, or she. And I think that continues in life, in relationships and work, management, functional leadership roles. And so, I think it's just a part of human nature.
There's actually there's a lot of interesting substance in that statement, the clubbing idea, because on one hand, there's almost the fact that our metrics are broken. How we evaluate someone of substance, how we determine that they are worthy of our time, our loyalty, our attention. Classic example: followers, vanity metrics. How we determine who is a person of substance based on their title, based on the company they work for, based on their follow account, as opposed to the things that they say, the things they've done, their track record. So I'll kind of put that out there for a moment and have you respond to that, and then I'll give you the second takeaway from that statement.
Yeah, I actually I pose a what I call one question survey in the book, and what I'm saying is we should measure managers not based on whether they hit their numbers, but based on whether their team. So a manager of people, ask the team whether the manager supports innovative ideas, or new approaches to getting the work done better or faster, or at a higher rate. That's what we should be promoting people for, because a leader, is only effective if they have a team of people that want to follow them. And so we should gauge the effectiveness of a leader based on the willingness of people to follow them, or the willingness of people to achieve a common goal. And so it's a somewhat controversial, sort of thing. We did do a case study with a very large CPG manufacturer over the course of about 5 quarters, and they found that job satisfaction of the people under the leaders increased by about 20 points. It went from about 60 to 80% satisfaction, just by asking them that question. Wow. Do you have a manager that supports you? And so there's a lot that we can get into on that. But what we found was just asking the question, saying, hey, you're going to be, as a leader, evaluated on people's opinions of whether you support their ideas to drive innovation and efficiency and all the things that they're supposed to do. Drove massive cultural change in those organizations, which I think is pretty interesting.
It's what Colin Shaw on my show maybe 2 years ago referred to as a golden question. Not unlike Net Promoter Score, not unlike other questions. In fact, the example he used was just the question, do you buy your dog a card on their birthday or a gift on their birthday, is a proxy, and an almost a perfect proxy for the determination whether they would buy premium dog food for their pet. And it kind of makes sense as well. Mm-hmm. So I love that golden question. So here's the other part to it. The other part to it is the hope that people will change. it gets into abusive relationships for the most part. And we can talk about that personally. We can talk about that professionally as well. We can talk about even mean bosses and mean people. I recently watched Steve Jobs's speech, 2005 Stanford graduation. It actually changed my view of Steve Jobs, who was known as a not nice person, especially if you read Isaacson's biography.
Mhm.
But how do we deal with that? Should we accept mean people? And is it enough to hope that they will change and be better one day?
Yeah. I mean, well, I mean, I talk mostly about professional mean people in the book.
We can focus on that for now.
Yeah, yeah, because I'm not a marriage counselor, so that's we're not going to go down that road. But
Or do you play one on TV?
no, nor do I play one on TV. So but from a work psychology perspective, we saw this with I think the Great Resignation, quote unquote. I think that was about I don't know, 4 minutes, maybe 5 minutes of people saying that they could do whatever they want. The point of the Great Resignation, though, was, it was kind of like, I've had enough. I don't need to put up with this BS anymore. And that's my advice to folks that work in mean situations. And I tell a number of stories in the book about folks that, they achieved success despite working for assholes in many instances, if I'm allowed to say that, by gaining the support of the folks around them. And I think you talk about this in your book as well. And so, I talk about the 3 C's is kind of like, customers, colleagues, and the company. And I call it the bullseye organization. A bullseye organization is one where everyone is focused on meeting customer needs. And so the impact of a mean boss becomes significantly reduced when the focus is on driving customer experience. And the way to drive customer experience is not listen to your mean boss. It's gather your colleagues together to focus on that goal. And that's how the company drives success. So, talk about, driving change. The subtitle of the book is that it's not a book about let's all be nicer. It's a book about, we can actually drive better results when we focus on empathy inside organizations, empathy for customers and colleagues, and drive company profits and happier experiences as employees. So, it sounds easy to do, but it's very difficult, in real life. But that's really the crux of it.
And let's just be clear about it, which is charity begins at home. If you don't treat your talent, your people with empathy, how on earth do you expect them to treat customers with any form of empathy?
Yeah. Yeah.
And yet, as commonsensical as this is, common sense is anything but. I'm time traveling at the moment because I've pre-recorded this interview with Tom Peters, which will air December 1st. And he talks about the fact that this is about people serving people serving people. It's about people. And yet we talk about products, and we talk about brand, and we talk about advertising and Super Bowl, and we talk about all these other things and technology, and it just distracts and dilutes from the core message, which is be nice. For God's sake, just be nice.
That's it. It's hard to write a book about that. And that's why, that was really a tough part was, how do you just tell people to be nice in a way that doesn't sound like, you're a kindergarten teacher? And so, I tried to use stories of real people that did this and it was really interesting. Some of the stories that I heard from a wide variety of different people in different situations, a lot of it took some courage, but the momentum that they were able to build, again, mainly from support from colleagues, from their teams around them, is what I think is something that we can all tap into is, you may feel like you're alone when you take that first step. I don't know if you've ever saw the video of the guy dancing in the park. He's talking about crazy, some crazy, do you know the video I'm talking about? This is like a viral video back in,
no, but I will look for it.
Yeah.
Well,
It's like circa 20, 11, maybe, so it was early days of the social web. And there's a, video that went around. It was a guy like, some hippie guy stands up in the middle of a park and he just starts dancing. Everybody's looking at him like he's crazy. And then somebody else joins him, and then 3 people join, and then 10 people join. And then, before you know it, there's, 200 people in a park dancing. And it's the same kind of thing, I think, that can happen when show a little bit of courage and push back against, meanness, if you will. And it can really, sort of create a better experience for everybody.
Well, let me ask specifically about that. And when you're buying your book, Mean People Suck, make sure you buy the T-shirt to it. It reminds me of, it was a Benny Hill. Do you remember Benny Hill, the comedian?
Love Benny Hill.
I mean,
Yeah.
I think, by the way, Benny Hill would basically be canceled 9 times out of 10 right now, and probably, but
I got the theme song running in my head now.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, and there was always the poor little bald guy. He got tapped on the head all the time. But there was a skit in Benny Hill, and it said "Watership Down." Remember the book Watership Down? So it said, "Watership Down. You've read the book, you've seen the movie, you've bought the T-shirt. Now eat the pie," which I always. I don't know why. Like, of all the jokes, that one stuck with me the most. I've never eaten rabbit before, but yeah, go buy the shirt and eat the pie, and buy the book. But I want to go back to these stories as well. You mentioned a 4th C. You spoke about the 3C model, and I'm going to give you the 4th one. And it's also something that I've just heard again and again and again at this marketing conference that I went to a couple weeks ago, which is courage and bravery. It's weird that you even need courage to be nice or to not be mean. Can you talk about an example or a case where someone had the courage to push against the mean and change their approach, and what happened as a result?
Yeah, I mean, there's 2 stories from the book. I'm trying to think of which one I want to tell you, or if I try to super short describe each one. But
you can take your time. Tell them in your own pace.
I think the best one, the most impactful one, there were some folks at Capgemini, in, again, sort of, early part of the digital web. Their website, wasn't as great as they thought it should be. And they compete, Capgemini competes with, like, Arthur Anderson and Accenture and all these folks. And what KPMG and what their CEO did was he looked around and he saw all these other competitors sponsoring golfers. And so, the CEO thought, well, I guess we have to sponsor a golfer. And the marketing team at Capgemini said no. They had the courage to say no. And I talk about Lili Lepine was sort of the hero of the story in the book, but she did some research, and what she found was that, like 8% of their target audience was passionate about golf. And she had done this as part of a larger customer research program. So when the CEO came with this request, like, hey, I'm going to write you a big $20 million check, go find a golfer to sponsor. And she said, well, I don't know if that's a good idea, because I did some other research on things that our customers want, and golf interest was very small, very low. And so she pushed back, and she actually proposed delivering on the needs of what she found in her research, which was, insights and information and thought leadership and, all the kinds of things that a professional service company like theirs should deliver. And the CEO was skeptical, but gave her a little bit of rope to hang herself with. And she did. She went out and built, kind of a content platform, online publisher-like magazine, and generated, something like $1 million in revenue, by accident. And at the end of this test period, she went to the CEO and she said, look at all this great stuff I did. And he still said, I still think we should sponsor a golfer. And she said, you know what, listen, this happened. The revenue happened by accident. We were meeting customer needs. We showed you that sponsoring a golfer we didn't think was going to meet our customers' needs. Well, now let's focus on the revenue part. Let's see if we can double down on that. So she got another grace period. And in the next year, she didn't turn $1 million into 2. She turned $1 million into $24 million in revenue. And it's just one of the, one of the great examples. It's called the Content Loop, was the program that she developed, but it was really just thought leadership content shared by their experts, invitations to connect on LinkedIn. It was about building a community, but it took a lot of courage. I mean, she was just like a lower level, manager of the brand, and was pushing back against the CEO, and the CMO really wanted that golf sponsorship budget. And, she said no. So, that's just one example of courage. And there's a number that I share in the book that, if you have time, I could just keep going.
And Michael, what's so interesting about that story is that, which is also the tragedy of business, is that the rope, when you feel so passionate about something, when you really want to be able to deliver something because it's the right thing, you almost have to stick your neck out to the point where it's going to be cut off. Had she failed, her neck would have been cut off figuratively. Even in success, she still hadn't succeeded. And it's a shame that is a corporate culture that actually says you've got to put your entire security on the line in order to go against the grain, which is, but we're still going to sponsor a golfer.
Yeah, and I love to say banner ads have 99 problems and a click ain't one. It's and yet marketers are doing them all the time. And part of the reason I wrote the book is because I as a former marketing person at corporate marketer, I talked to so many former colleagues who were miserable. And so I think part of the reason I wrote it was it really has nothing to do with my business and what we do, but it was more of a passion project to share success stories of folks that had stuck their neck out. I got that right. Stuck their neck out and didn't fail. They succeeded. And I think these stories of courage we need to keep sharing so that, we continue to see that courage and the pushback, as I call it.
Yeah, I mean, it seems, and then I would love to just before we segue into the concept of fear, because fear, uncertainty, and doubt, is with in the face of this meanness, essentially implies that courage, a lot of courage, is needed in order to make that move and cross that chasm. But I actually, first of all, just found this. I always try and find a quote. And this is the quote that I found for you in this episode. And it's as simple as this. Sometimes these quotes are, pre this new world we live in, but it was man's meanness, or it's actually completely accurate, which is women are not mean. So that's probably what it means. Man's meanness is a fuse in search of a flame. And this is Carlos Ruiz Zafón. I'm assuming what Carlos is saying is that they're not searching for more meanness, but instead for light and connection. How do you interpret this quote? Man's meanness is a fuse in search of a flame.
Well, it's something you referenced in your opening soliloquy, which I actually was crying during. It was really very, very powerful.
Because you wanted it to end, right?
No, but it's behind every mean person is someone who's struggling and searching for a flame, I think, in this quote. And so it's hard to I think come to that conclusion. But that's what happens when you have empathy, right? When you have empathy, you even see those mean folks as the humans that they are, struggling with something that they're isn't visible to all of us. And so that's, I think, part of the trick is, I don't know, I want to say forgive and forget, but just having a little bit of understanding of, they're probably just having a bad day or a bad life in some cases, or, in some way. And we just need to have a little bit of, of compassion.
Compassion, empathy, but then they all have enemies. And one of them also is this idea of pride, and building up walls. And it almost seems like you maybe you should be a therapist, because I feel like I'm getting therapy today in terms of juxtaposing, Michael, the idea of common sense. Yes, common sense, but also the fact that this is, this is kind of psychology 101. We're not that complicated, really. In fact, business isn't even that complicated. So why the hell do we overcomplicate everything?
Well, I mean, part of the reason, and you also mentioned this, like using a word like suck. I thought a long time about it. The website was available, meanpeoplesuck.com. So I thought, this is a sign. I need to go with this title.
I tried to
But
register it. It was taken.
I know I snagged it from you. But part of the reason I think I decided to use it is because we need to shake people up a little bit. Like, and a great example of this, I remember when I was at SAP, there was a leader there. And he was one of the most charismatic people I've ever seen. He's no longer at the company, but he used to say, like, he'd say something like, you can't eat an elephant in one bite. And then the next thing you know, in the next like 3 months, that line was used in every meeting I was in. And I was just like, gosh, we're just like robots sometimes. And so the reason I think we need to shake people up a little bit is that sometimes we just kind of go through life and we repeat what other people say. And we just, we want to skate under the radar and not, shake things up a little too much. And that's why we end up in some of the situations we don't want to be in. And so, I'm sure you thought the same thing with your book, with Built to Suck. It's, take a premise like Built to Last and put a different spin on it and try to shake people up to think a little bit differently so that we can start to drive some of the right change in the world.
I mean, I thought so. I thought so at the time as well. But this idea of shaking people up is important, because sometimes we are in a slumber, and we are, whether that slumber is complacency or delusion or denial is not a river in Egypt. I do want to just mention, I mean, I had a good friend, Maggie Fox, who worked at SAP. SAP really, through social media, and in particular, I believe it was probably you, Michael, but I believe you also had a very dynamic CEO who was very open with social media. SAP really became a gold standard in terms of how companies and brands could humanize themselves, demonstrate empathy, and cut against the grain when it came to joining the conversation. Someone once wrote a book called "Join the Conversation."
Yeah. No, I worked hand in hand with Maggie, and she did a great job. And we were thrilled to have her, and really upset to see her leave when she did. Yeah, no, the guy's name is Bill McDermott. He's now the CEO of the company my wife works at, ServiceNow. And and like she'll tell me, they'll have an all hands call, and she'd just be like, he's just amazing. He should be in politics, because you'd follow him off a bridge, into traffic. He just has a way with making you feel like he really cares. And that's why SAP's, I think, entrance into social media really worked. Not only do we have a great leader driving the bus with Maggie, but she had the support of someone like Bill, who knew you had to be real and authentic and really put yourself out there, and in order for it to work. And so it's just something that's lacking in too many places.
Well, please, if you are in contact with Bill, let him know that he is very welcome on the show. In fact, I would be honored and humbled to have a conversation with him. His place is reserved. He gets the VIP treatment, which is also the same treatment that you get, Michael. So everyone is treated the same, which is like an absolute champion that they are.
I'm pretty sure he'd be a VVIP, probably. I think.
An EVIP, an SVIP. I don't know.
Yeah, something like that. Very, very important.
Very, very important. A V cubed IP. How about that?
Yeah, I think so.
Let's segue into a discussion about fear and the connection to growth. We are, I feel it in my bones, and as someone who has a sometimes daily and sometimes weekly, depending on my mood, talk show, 413 unique guests later, you get to very, very clearly see trends. You get a sense as to whether things are on the up and up, or down and down, or down low, whatever. And my sense right now is there is fear. There is fear, and there is uncertainty, and there is doubt, and people are hurting. And even amidst, I mean, today Facebook announces 11,000 people being laid off, 11% of the workforce, 11,000 people. The thing about those 11,000 people is that, it's going to be really hard to submit a resume only to be told, well, we did just get another 10,999 other applications. I mean, you are now in a almost a lose-lose situation. And, I will say, Michael, one of the things that I said this morning in our virtual coffee was that if a company had what was called a no layoff policy, an NLP, I would go to work for them. I would go to work for them, and I'd even accept a little bit less money because they have an NLP. That's a way to differentiate yourself. So I would love for you to talk about are you sensing the same thing? It's a fear, but it's a different kind of fear right now. It's even a different fear to what we encountered in 2020.
Yeah, well, I think that's what it is. I think it's fear in addition to exhaustion of fear,
Yeah.
and so we hit, we faced the pandemic, almost overnight. It became a global thing, and we all went through whatever phases of fear and doubt and uncertainty that we all went through. And then, we things started to open up. We thought that we were okay, and then we had new things come in, and so we were like, okay, well, it's kind of like we figured out our sea legs and how to deal with those, ups and downs. And then, then we had the Great Resignation, like I said, which lasted like 4 minutes. Maybe it was even 4 seconds, right? Because there was like 4 seconds where more companies wanted to hire people than there were workers, and there's still some of that happening in certain elements of the economy. But for folks in the Bay Area, in the technology sector, it's a rough patch. And I was talking to a client in the Bay Area just on Monday, and she's like, that's what she said to me. She's like, it's one thing to be afraid, and she's like, I've got a friend at this company and a friend at that company, and the one wanted to retire in the next year or two, but now he's got to put that out. And the other one is like, he got an email that said, if you get another email in 10 minutes, pack your stuff and go. If you don't get another email, you're good. And it's like, it's just crazy. So I think it's, we are dealing with fear all the time. I think as a group of society, we're just exhausted. I feel it. I think we all do. It's just, how many more blows can we take? And so, we have another client in the Bay Area who's in the cloud world, and I actually I found a book. It was basically referencing how the cloud technologies of today, and it's not meta, it's not AI, it's really just the fact that we're sort of interconnected in deeper ways that we can't even imagine right now. It's going to drive like a new 1920s sort of boom. But before we get there, it's there's going to be this sort of reckoning of the economy kind of figuring out the oversupply and undersupply from COVID. I'm optimistic, is my point, and I think other people are starting to see there's reason for optimism. We're going to have to get through this rough patch, and I my heart goes out to anyone who's been laid off recently, and if they're watching, tomorrow's going to be another day, and we're all going to get through this together.
Amen. And we'll give you applause for that statement. I mean, it always in our coffee this morning, the same coffee, we were discussing a post from my friend David Berkowitz, who I think you probably know in the space, as we always say, the other one, the other David Berkowitz. And it was a post of his basically saying layoffs suck. And, the way to react to them is not to say, hey, I was laid off. It was the greatest thing that ever happened to me in my life. And he was like, be angry, cry, wail, scream, mourn, do whatever, it sucks. It's terrible. And maybe they'll get better on the back end. But right now, no amount of, hey, listen, the sun will come up tomorrow. But then there are moments of kindness. And, by the way, when you do your second edition or your second book, I figured out how you can write a book about nice, because you said, but it has to go like this: for God's sake, be nice. That's how you write the book. That's the corollary, or for sake, be nice already. Go with and suck. Anyway, but what I noticed happened with Twitter was, with all these layoffs, you had companies coming out of the woodwork, whether it was a PR stunt or not, saying, if you lost your job at Twitter, we will hire you on the spot. Come and work for us. And that is it. I mean, that's empathy plus, plus, plus.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, if you look at the data, I mean, we're still underemployed, and there's still, there's still more jobs out there than people. And so, while we hear 11,000 sounds like such a huge number, there's hundreds of thousands of openings across the U.S. economy, and even more obviously in the world. And now that it's okay to work from home, I've been working from home for 20 years, I think, on and off. And I heard a quote from a CEO yesterday, saying that working from home is a privilege like getting your driver's license. And I thought, that's bullshit. Working from home is more efficient for some people. And so you're lucky to have people that want to be more efficient and not waste their time in traffic. But again, I think, I'm optimistic that those folks are going to find roles, and, hopefully quicker, hopefully immediately in that instance. And they're going to land in a place that isn't run by, lunatics.
Yeah. By ourselves. And look, coming into the office, having someone commute from dark to dark, from dawn to dusk, 2 hours on the Metro North into Grand Central, whatever, that's a privilege, and putting them into a cube farm like a rat, like a lab rat. I mean, like that, it's a privilege to have someone give of themselves physically and spiritually and mentally for you and your stupid P&L. So just let's take that and turn it on its head. So bravo to that.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned Steve Jobs. I'm also a fan of Steve, and I love that. I've studied his iPhone launch speech. If you know Nancy Duarte, she's picked that apart as one of the greatest examples of a professional business speech ever. But his speech to the college there that you referenced was brilliant as well. But one of the lines in the book I use is Steve's quote, that we don't hire smart people so we can tell them what to do. And it's kind of the same thing. It's a privilege for you to hire smart people, not because you're giving them a job, but because you're gaining their new ideas, their creativity, their passion for building something that matters in the world. And I mean, the concept of servant leadership is, obviously a common thread, I think, through both of our books. But, those are the kind of places I wanted to work. Those are the kind of places most people want to work, as opposed to the opposite.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll just, cap that with a statement, which is, it's the same as having, now I spend a lot of time within the Web3 environment, but specifically delivering on what I once wrote about even 18 years ago in Life After the 30-Second Spot, which is community. And, and the thing is, it's the same concept with big voices in a community. Give them the space and give them the air. We're not talking about hot air, but when people come in that seem threatening, that's on you. That's not on them. This is David Ogilvy, and I will use the politically incorrect phrase because it is a quote. He said, if you hire people that are smarter than you, that are bigger than you, you will end up with a company of giants. And if you hire people that are smaller than you, you will end up with a company of midgets. And I think those were his words verbatim. And it's the same thing. If you're hiring people smarter than you, let them be smart, and don't be so damn insecure that you can't handle, kind of being outspoken or out intellected. That's why you hired them in the first place.
That's right.
All right. So there is one more piece to this puzzle, and it is the connection to growth. Now, one of the things that you talk about and you write about is the fact that smart companies are investing in marketing now to grow through the fear. So there is a connection between fear and growth. I would love for you, in the time we have left, to talk about, first of all, the connection between fear and growth. How do we overcome? How do we manage? How do we control fear and almost turn it or turn on it into growth? And then, of course, one of the most critical points, which you've already alluded to, which is when we look back at the last recession and the last crisis, some of the greatest companies and products and technologies were born in that moment of extreme fear.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because fear can be a motivator. But I think the main point I try to make, especially to our current clients, is, fear is an invention of the mind, right? There's no monster that's going to eat us. The crocodile that tried to eat me was not named Fear. His name was Frank. Clearly they're different people. They're different crocodiles, right? There's no monster named Fear, right? So it's just inside our heads. And so I wrote an article about this a couple weeks ago, and it was really inspired by a client newsletter. But and his newsletter was inspired by some guy's tweet that I wish I remembered. But the tweet was, and I can send you a link if you want to share it out. But the tweet was, every CEO at the beginning of a recession wants to cut marketing, and every CEO coming out of a recession asks, "Where's the leads?" and the point was, the smart CEOs, maybe you're not turning up the investment, but you're at least protecting the investment. You need to grow. You're going to need to grow even more so if there's a down economy than an up. And so, investment in marketing, at least the kind of marketing that works, which is the only kind of marketing I like to talk about, is not only a smart thing, but it's the least dumb thing that I think you can do. So I think, one, fear is an invention of the mind. Like you said, it won't always be this bad, but, imagine future you wishing you hadn't cut marketing. And that's, kind of the point that we're trying to make. And we're making it quite often these days to folks, is just to say, especially if the marketing you're doing is helping people, which is the kind of marketing we do. It's not the marketing that only helps me. It's the marketing that helps them. And so now's especially the time when we should be continuing to do so.
I corrected my mute mistake, my amateurish mute mistake. I always use the example of, can you imagine going to our spouse and saying to them, you know what, I'm just going to go dark on you for 3 months. I've run out of budget. I'm just going to go dark on you. But then in 3 months' time, we'll just pick up where we left off. I mean, maybe not a spouse. Imagine a boyfriend or a girlfriend being able to say, this. It's
my wife might love that suggestion, by the way. I don't know. I'm going to ask her. She might say, she might think about it for a minute.
You'd be like, honey, how about I go dark on you for 3 months? You'll go, make it 6 and we have a deal. Okay. So we've got that quote combined with the crocodile's name was not Fear, it was Frank. That is a key takeaway. But yes, I mean, for people
we're bringing it full circle.
I know this is the new content loop. For people that are watching that, I mean, this show was created with a goal of, focusing on hope, positivity, and optimism, as my mother says, HPO. And if there's time left over, a little bit of marketing. And I think the thing is, what I've never realized until just now is that the hope, positivity, and optimism actually is connected to the marketing. And if that message can come out in and through the marketing, in fact, by the marketing even continuing and existing, there is still a bridge and a connection and a rapport and a dialogue and a connection to the world between the brand and the consumer, so much so that hopefully when the CEO says at the end of the day, how many leads did we get? There are going to be many.
That's it.
All right. Well, Michael Brenner, it was wonderful to have you on the show. I know that you have to go, but I am going to make sure I'm going to let you drop off, and I'm going to go ahead and show a whole bunch of ways that people can connect with you, white papers, webinars, ways to engage. But I just want to say, first of all, before I spend the last 2 or 3 minutes telling people how they can interact with this amazing VIP, I just want to let you know that Chuck Norris really, really appreciated you today.
You are Chuck Norris approved.
All right, Michael,
That's
I'll
awesome.
let you go to your next podcast interview. It was
Thank
a
you, sir.
pleasure. No, the
Thank you
pleasure,
so much.
the pleasure was all mine. That was Michael Brenner. And if you want to contact him, and if you want to find out a little bit more about how to work with him, he has very, very kindly shared a bunch of links. First of all, you can find more about his company at marketinginsidergroup.com. You can get a free PDF called the Content Formula. There's no registration required, and you can do that at bit.ly. It's a little bit of an easier URL to jot down. TCF-PDF. Get it? The Content Formula-PDF. I don't even know what the hell PDF stands for. But if I did, I would tell you. The other thing is there's a webinar, and if you are interested, you can register for your free webinar on 10 practical tips to content marketing success. And you can do that at go.marketinginsidergroup.com. Of course, amidst everything, please go out and buy Mean People Suck, Why Empathy is the Secret. It's not even a secret, it's obvious, but why empathy is the secret to success. And finally, if you do want to engage with him on the social medias, you can do that on the Twitter and via LinkedIn. You do not want to see Chuck Norris again. Chuck Norris will only give me one Chuck Norris per episode. And so the only thing I can do is say, enjoy the rest of your week. Thank you for spending time live with me today, and I will see you all very soon. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you for watching the show about hope, positivity, optimism, and if there's time left over, a little bit of marketing with your host, multiple author, and global keynote speaker, Joseph Jaffe. If you like the show, tell a friend or two. Please subscribe to the show, and if you want to get inside news, previews of upcoming guests, and much more, visit josephjaffe.com/subscribe to sign up for the show's newsletter.
And despite the best ministrations of your wife, you still look ugly.